right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right, we are here today to answer every question you've ever had about FOBs. And I have elicited some support. Tony Quattromoni is going to be joining me as our expert area field presenter. Pretty fancy titles. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Lou's not here. Bill, do you know how to dim the lights? Bill's all over it.
Let me say something as second speaker. Yes, I'm, as I hope most of you know, I'm the chair of I think most of you know I'm the chair of the Technology and Communication Committee. And we have been involved in several areas. But believe me, we're not experts. We'll all be experts once we start using it. Because it really is easy. But Mike Murphy on the committee went and looked at in detail all of the internal procedures, which we really don't need as users to know, other than the fact that the procedures are sound, they're detailed, and they make the system work for us. So I want to thank Mike for taking the time. I read those procedures, it's beyond me, but Mike had the patience to do it. Now the second thing, and then I'll sit down. Yes, we've helped. We reviewed the briefing, we're going to part of the briefing, but we are not, the members of the Technology Committee, are not the people to call if you have problems. Call management. We have enough on the Technology Committee trying to help you use your electronic kit. Thanks.
All right. So let's go ahead and the first slide. And so the first thing that you need to know is that each and every FOB has a unique ID code attached to it. And so that's important because if there are two of you in an apartment, each of you will have a different FOB. It's not like the old system where the FOB, it was the same FOB. It's identified individually with a unique ID code. And so if there are two of you, you have two different codes. If you have a family member, there is a different code for each and every family member that you get a FOB to. So family members, you can have as many family members be issued a FOB as you would like. If you have a daughter and a son and a niece, all three of them can have a FOB. The cost is $50 each. They're individually programmed. The big advantage here is family is no longer going to be required to go through the front door or to sneak through a side door. They can go to any door they want because they'll have access not only to the entry doors but also to your apartment. And because this is tracked and recorded, we know who is going where within the system.
So they don't use the system to tag it.
So AccuShield.
More questions at the end?
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and answer this one. We'll try to hold the questions till the end. But the question was, does that mean families no longer have to use the AccuShield identification? And so this does let us know who is in the building and when they are there, so it accomplishes that. You will only need to use AccuShield in the front door if we are under COVID precautions. And so if we have an outbreak within the community and it's important that we're screening individuals for COVID symptoms and checking temperatures, then we would go back and require that all of our guests use the front doors. Try to find a spot where I'm not getting feedback. How's that? Okay. Okay, so there are two outcomes for this FOB. at some point, if you return the fob, there's no charge. One of the nice things about this is they can be reprogrammed. And so if I have your old fob, literally what I can do is I have, Betsy has a thing at her desk, and it's a scanner, and she can take your old fob, she can run it across and completely deprogram it. She can select the next party who is going to get the fob, and she can take that fob, run it a second time, and reuse the fob. And so if you return the fob, there's no charge and it's completely refundable. If you lose the fob, do not lose the fob. It's expensive. There's a $250 charge. And the cost is not in the fob, it's in the how you have to recover from that. And so I think I have a slide on that. So why is that price so high? And here's why. If I have your fob, I can do a global command. I can erase your history, I can take you off of the program, I can reissue it with another global command, and I can reuse that fob 2, 3, 4 times, or it just doesn't matter. You know, sometimes in a hotel you can have magnetics interrupted on the cards, and so you can go down to the front desk and give them the card and they can reprogram it. This is reprogrammable as well. Here's where the problem comes in. I have to have the fob in order to do a global command. Remember I talked about I take that fob and I run it across the scanner and it erases everything, it erases your access, and then I can reprogram it. If I don't have that fob, there is no way for me to do that globally. And so depending upon your fob and where you have been granted access, the only way to resolve that is to go, I have a little portable scanner, and I literally, actually it will be Betsy, Betsy literally has to go to every lock in the building that you have been granted access to and deactivate it manually. And so you can imagine some of the staff, if I lose my key fits over 500 locks. And so someone's going to have to go to every one of those locks if I've lost the fob, because without the fob, you cannot do a global command. It has to be done individually because you have nothing to read. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Tony, you're up.
Well, I think this answers the question about the pacemaker. It will not affect your pacemakers. That's. I like to walk around. I can't stand in one place and talk. Okay, this is another question that people ask about. I think it's evident that there may be a slight reduction to your own insurance. You can address that with your insurance company. But basically, Regency Oaks is not going to have a lower insurance policy or cost. Next. This is an important one. What if there's a fire? Well, the chief has access to a lockbox at each entry. So that takes care of the fire. If there's a fire, they'll come to the entry, they'll get the key, they'll get their master fob, and they can go anywhere in the building. They'll be tracked, but they can go anywhere in the building. Is there a separate one for medical? I don't think so. So what's the case when the people come if there's a medical emergency? Well, they go to the front door and they're given a 911 fob. For lack of any other reason, it's a special fob for the people, for the emergency people. That'll let them go into the doors they need to go into. And of course, that could be any time. So that's important. Well, I think the one you need to know the top two. When someone new comes in, the fobs are going to be issued by marketing, which is appropriate because that's where the contracts are signed, and they'll be given a fob signed to them and for their apartment. if you need a new, or if you need your fob activated or deactivated, Betsy will take care of that. Now the HR people will take care of their own people, and Betsy will take care of move-outs. So the main thing you need to know is, once you get your fob, you have your fob. If you have problems with it, I hate to say this, but call Betsy.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit about the matrix, and we've worked really hard at developing this matrix to make sure that the keys that we are giving are, the matrix is designed to give you only the access that you really need. Now this applies to residents and staff. It is probably more applicable to staff, but I wanted to share this with you because it just gives you some real depth of understanding in terms of how we've gone and tried to restrict access across the board. So there are 4 types of locks at Regency Oaks. Everything is now going to be locked down. You're going to have entrances. Those are all the side doors and exterior perimeter entrances. You're going to have resident rooms. Those are your individual apartments. You're going to have anything that's considered a resident amenity, whether it's the sports bar or the library, anything that is not a resident room but has resident access is considered an amenity, and then there are restricted areas. So those are the 4 types of locks. Next slide. Now there are 15 access groups. So, and they're listed here, but we've just broken them down into categories so that you can take a look. Now go back go back the other way again. We've sort of also have broken this down in terms of who has the most access to the least access. And so as you see, it's our first responders, our maintenance team, and administration. They have the broadest capabilities on campus in terms of being able to get access. And then as you flip to the next slide, you'll see that it goes down from there. And that poor HR, she can't go anywhere. All right, so we have 15 categories. We have 4 different locks. 4 times 15 is 60. And now we've broken it down even more specifically so that within each one of those categories there are further limitations, and I've just got a couple of examples here. Here's our maintenance. This is right there at the top. They have access to all entrances. They have access to all resident rooms, all resident amenities, and then here is a list of restricted areas that they have access to. So they can go to a mail room, a dining storage. They can get into the elevator equipment and electrical rooms. They can access our boiler rooms. And so they have really broad access to the restricted areas. Now let's just flip over and compare what dining staff has access to as compared to the first group. They're further down the chain. They're closer to the bottom. And so they have the categories that ran across the top, and it was entries, yes, resident areas, no. I forget what the third one is. And then these are the restricted areas that they would have access to. And you can see that the access really has been granted based upon their job function. They need to be able to go into the linen room and get napkins and tablecloths. They need to be access to the training room so that they can do their continuing education and the Pineapple Academy. Access to activity storage as we're setting up for events and getting to where props and other supplies are kept. And so we've identified based upon your need of access and put you in a restricted group that ended up looking a little bit like a triangle. And so the further up you went, a reverse triangle, I guess, because the further up you went, the less access you had. Okay. Tony, I think this is yours.
You can see we didn't practice it. Okay, once everything is set up and all the system is done, once the whole system is set up and we're given the green light that we're 100%, turn that in. Turn the old one in and start using the new one. They both, right now, will open the back doors. Okay, now the one problem that I see with this, we've all addressed it, is that if you let your door close, you don't have your fob, you're going to have a problem. So the first thing you have to train yourself to do is keep the fob with you. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but keep the fob with you. The second thing you need to know is you can leave your door open. So if you're going to cross the hall, walk down to the station, prop your door open. Best to take the fob with you, but prop your door open. Nothing's going to happen. When you come back, it'll still be open. So first thing, remember, take the fob. Second thing is you can prop your door open. If you don't, this is what happens. Somehow you have to let the front desk know. Whether you run down to the front desk, call the neighbor, yell, scream, you got to let the front door know. The front desk. Go back to your apartment. Door's locked, so you have to stand outside. Third thing is the reception will know if this is during business hours. They'll put out an all-staff alert and somebody will come. Now, I'm very fortunate. If I lose mine, I'm right across the hall from the maintenance department. So all I have to do is say, help, and they'll come. But I'm not going to forget my key. And the responder will stay until the missing key is found. That's important. And that's good to know. Next. What happens if locked out in the evening or off when the business is closed? Same alert process. Notify the front desk. Either yell loud, get a neighbor, or run down to the front desk. But that's where you have to start. And the front desk only has one resource when the business is down. That's security. It may take a little longer, but I've met most of the security people. They're pretty darn good. And the same thing on the weekend. They get elected. Okay. What are the benefits in the new system? Well, the first benefit is better security and better control of access to all parts of the community. And the ability to know who opened the door. If you want to know who opened the door, you can get downstairs. You know, if you're gone sometime, you think the place has been open, you can go downstairs and talk to Betsy. And I'm not sure what the alternative is. But we could go to this, the management can go to the records and tell you who opened your door. Right now, they can't do that. They can guess at it. Or maintain the records. Door ajar messaging. I think they'll be alerted if the door is open. And if it's open for a long period of time, maybe they'll do something. Which I know lots of times when we come back, we do a lot of moving in and out of the apartment. So I prop my door open. And I will continue to prop my door open. Just remember, you can do it. And the system will show, but that's okay. I'm not sure what we mean by future capabilities.
Well, and so this is, because it's electronic and state of the art, it means that we have the opportunity to attach different programming to this. One of the other packages that you can get is to take that door alert messaging and send a message to your cell phone. Hi, you've walked out of your apartment and forgotten to shut your door. We would have the capability to leave messages electronically so that when you return back to your apartment and you hit your fob key, you could get a pre-recorded message that you missed because you were out of the apartment. So there are future modules that we can build upon as we expand the technology, and it just gives us new capabilities. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the fobs are not hardwired. They're not on the Wi-Fi system. The door sensor itself has batteries in it, and the batteries have to be changed. They say every 2 years, management's going to change them every year. So that'll take care of it. If the power goes out, you got about a 14-day life on that battery. So if the power goes out, unless we have a humongous hurricane, it won't be effective. And if we do, then management's going to have to go in and change the batteries. I'd like to just give one quick demonstration. I wish I had a doorknob up here. But I want to show you one demonstration about what using the fob compared to using the key. Now, yesterday I went to the party. I had a lot to drink, like many of the people that were there. They're on? Did they? Okay. So when I came back, and I had to open the door, I used the key. Now envision the door here, okay? I used the key, and I had to find the keyhole. And once I found the keyhole, I had to push it in. Hopefully I found the keyhole. Now, if I go to another party and I come back, I don't have to worry about the keyhole. All I have to do is hold it in the door hole. That's the difference. Plus the fact that you can lock yourself up, so be careful. Thanks.
Which part do we use, the black side or the white side?
It makes no difference.
If I've misplaced my fob, is there any way it can be traced where it is?
Oh.
No.
I don't think so.
No, it's not Wi-Fi.
In the apartment? No.
What was the question? I didn't hear it.
The question was,
If I misplaced my fob, can it be traced?
If she lost it, misplaced it.
The last place you could?
if you misplace your fob somewhere, can the system tell you where it is? And the answer is no.
Correct.
I haven't heard about this. Now, Betsy,
One question. Our name tags have strong magnetic holders, so they stay on if you wear them. And I'm wondering, is the magnetic part of our name tags going to be able to deprogram our fobs if we happen to have the fob in the pocket and put the magnetic sign into our pocket too? Is that a problem?
Great question, and he's asking if I have my name badge on and it has the magnet on the backside, and I slip my fob down into my shirt pocket, is it going to demagnetize it? And the answer is no. One of the reasons we elected to go with the fob as opposed to the card is the card, if you stick it in your wallet, you have a magnetic clip, or those are very easy to demagnetize. The fob, because it has the plastic protection, the shell around the actual device, they're much harder to demagnetize. Now, I suppose if you ran it through a CAT scan, you probably would demagnetize it. But there is some protection in the actual plastic fob coating.
Thank you.
When do you expect to change the doors?
Hold on, you're me next.
Okay. I just have a question about, what if you have a CNA coming to your apartment? Your best solution is to prop the door open?
So if you have a CNA or you're expecting a guest in your apartment, what is the best solution? And Bill is suggesting that maybe it's to prop it open. And I think that's probably a good idea. Or they could knock. I mean, there's that also, right?
I want to know will you have to change all the doors, and when will this be done?
So the question relates to the timing of the project. And so we spoke with Nathan this morning, and Nathan anticipates having all the perimeter doors done by close of business Friday, which means he would start next week on the actual apartments. Optimistically, he thinks it's a week per building. I would throw an extra week in there because there's an awful lot of doors. So I'm thinking it's still an additional 3 weeks.
Very briefly, just once, would you demonstrate how you use the fob on your door?
Does anyone, do we have that? Okay.
Well, I'll try it on this door and I'll try it on that door. But unfortunately, the system is not installed. So look over here and imagine that to be the keyhole. And if you want to use the key, you have to put it in the keyhole. Turn it. The key in the keyhole, if this was a keyhole here, and open the door. Okay, if you don't, if you're going to use the fob, you don't have to find the keyhole. You put it up here,
The door moves.
and it's supposed to open.
It's not perforated through your.
So, and that's it. The difference, you got a question.
All right, so we got that on the camera. All right. So watch 732 and you'll be able to get a visual.
I wake up at the middle of the night and there's a fire in the apartment. Can I manually open the front door?
Yes, and so exiting, whether from your apartment or any space on campus and all exterior doors, you do not need a fob to get out. You just need to engage the handle and push.
Okay.
Great question. In the event of a fire.
Okay, questions. In the event of a fire, which there has been one relatively recently, and all residents are evacuated, I understand they can come in and get the residents out. However, when you go back in, will they have access to let you in if you did not bring your fob?
So, great question. In the event of a fire, we will come and get you. Stay in your apartment. That is correct. And we will get you out. If you should leave your apartment after the fire and not have your fob with you, in order to get back in, you're going to need a fob. And yes, staff would be here in order to help you get back into your apartment and locate your fob.
So if the fire department or the people that take you out of the apartment and you do not bring the fob, you have to get staff here to get you back into the apartment?
Well, the fire department or staff. But as you recall from the recent fire, we had more people here than we knew what to do with. We had 90 firemen and 60 staff members to take care of 32 residents. So we're in great shape. Let's hope we never have a fire, but if we do, staffing is not going to be the issue.
Given the fob is programmed, if you get one for the family member, and you have multiple family members that visit at different times from different locations, the computer system will not have the family, and you give that to it will not give you who is entering the apartment. In other words, if you have one daughter who comes from one part of the country, and you have a family fob, and you give it to her.
Okay.
Then you have another daughter or son that comes from another part of the country, and you give them the fob. But you have to record who the family member is who has the fob.
No. Okay. So, great question. There is no such thing as a family fob. Remember we said there's a unique...
You had a personal fob, you had another residence fob, and you had another up there which said a family member fob.
Yeah. It is a family member fob, meaning it's you forgot the part where it's individually unique ID code assigned to my daughter. If you want...
But if you have 5 kids and they visit from around the world, so you have to get 5 fobs for $50 each?
You know, maybe it'd be more helpful if you let me finish my answer and then you can ask a clarifying question. And so if you have, let's say, 2 local children, a son and a daughter, they would both require an individual unique ID fob. If you are going to use it as a guest fob, we have guest fobs available at the front desk. So if you have a daughter who's coming from Seattle and she's here for a 3 or 4 day stay twice a year, you would be able to go and check out a guest fob at no charge.
Now, if you have a CNA that comes in every morning to get you out of bed, and it's a different CNA every day, and some of them are employees here that come through, but others come through other CNA associations, do they get a guest fob at the desk, and do you have to have the name, and do you have to give the name when it changes week by week and day by day?
So the question is, what if I have a CNA who's coming every day to take care of me? Do they have a fob? And she gave us two scenarios. If the CNA works for Regency Oaks and is part of IHS, they will already have a fob. We will give a CNA a guest fob if they are registered in AccuShield. If this is someone who has skirted the system and never bothered to go through the screening process or the access, we will not give them a fob. But if you've engaged with a legitimate company to provide a CNA that does not work at Regency Oaks, and they're legitimate and they're in our system, and we've screened them and they're safe, we will give them a guest fob.
Now, on the guest fobs at the front desk, essentially, say I have a friend coming over for dinner who lives somewhere in the area, and they come to the front desk. Do I have to have notified the front desk in advance for them to get a guest fob to be able to come in?
We will not give you a guest fob for someone who is coming for a dinner appointment or to play cards. They would knock on your door or ring your doorbell like all other guests.
And if I don't have the capability of getting to my door to let them in, so I have to prop the door open?
Yeah, how'd you get here?
I live in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Okay.
And I'm a family member.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so if you're bedbound, you aren't going to be living in the independent living. You'll be over in our assisted living or skilled nursing.
I'll talk to you individually.
Okay.
Quick question. To bypass, if you lose a fob, pay the high replacement fee, can you buy 2 fobs up front and have one as a backup? That's a great question. So if I purchase 2 fobs up front so that I have a replacement fob and I lose one, can I avoid paying the $250? And the answer is no. And here's why. Is because that if you lose that one, remember it's a unique ID. It's not its own individual ID fob. And so if you've lost it, what does that mean? It means it may be out there somewhere unknown, and someone who shouldn't have it may have it, and you've given them access to every exterior door in our community. So no, that has to, if we see inactivity, like I've registered a fob to you and oh my gosh, you haven't used that in 6 months, I probably am going to call you and say, hey, what do you still have that fob? And because the whole object of this is to tighten up our security. And so if you lose a fob that has full access to our building, you have to replace it and you have to notify us.
Quick question about exterior access, okay? If push doors that go open with a push pad have a required length of time they have to stay open, is that exterior doors using a fob will have that same length of time?
So the length of time that the doors stay open, exterior doors are 15 seconds, interior doors are currently set at 8 seconds.
Brent, you say that you'll be able to know who is in the apartment or who left the apartment. Sometimes Don grabs my keys, so that means that I've left, but I'm really still
That's
there.
true. We would not know the difference if there are 2 of you and you are interchanging fobs.
we would not know the difference. You know, they're assigned to you, but as husband and wife, you may not use the assigned fob. We don't have a problem with that. Great question.
I'm asking because it seems like this is a great expense.
I hear you.
I'm asking because it seems like this is a great expense rather than the keys. And I wonder, we're also paying a great deal of money every month. If this is really necessary, have you had a problem with people losing their keys?
So we've had the $250 replacement. That's the exact price of replacing the pendant. And so, because they work under similar platforms. But the secret is don't lose the fob. Don't lose the fob.
We're all seniors.
Well, you know, come on. This is independent living, and I'm here to tell you that, you know, how many of you permanently lost your car keys this year? No one. How many of you permanently lost your apartment key? Bill Henry lost it, but found it. But, you know, it's a very small number of times that this is going to occur. Can it occur? Absolutely. I understand that, but it's not. You know, it's everyone here is alert and oriented and very capable. You can do this. You heard Nathan say that he's been doing this for 15 years. He's installed tens of thousands of these doors in assisted living, memory care, independent living communities over the last 15 years. They're not having issues. I've talked to a couple of our other executive directors to say, you know, hey, my residents are concerned about this. They've given me great assurance that this is not an issue in their communities. They run very similar communities. And so I think we've identified the potential issues, and we'll continue to work on this as we go through the installation, but we're going to be able to do this.
This is a brand new program. We're all neophytes, but I have to ask this question. What does the servicing company do with the information they collect every time a key is used? Whatever happens to the key, all that's programmed into the servicing company. Is there something in our service contract that places restrictions on how this collected information may be used by the corporation who's got, eventually we'll have just piles of it? In this electronic world, corporations, governmental entities are collecting all kinds of information that we don't even know about. And they use it, mailing lists, etc. So what is the service company going to do with this collected information, which is subject to change? I think you mentioned that it's going to start out at one level, and then maybe over time they may modify it. When you sign up for this kind of program, you've lost control. And that bothers me.
So, great question. And the data that exists at Regency Oaks is maintained at Regency Oaks. Now, when you talk about a service company, we do have the capability for, and let's say we have there's something wrong in the software. We have the ability for them to come in remotely and evaluate the problem and try to fix it remotely. We absolutely have to have that ability. But that data it's not name driven, it's unit driven, and so they would have access to unit and punches and the unique ID code number, but your personal information is pretty well protected because it resides here, and the only thing that they would have access to is through a remote software repair or update.
Okay, that sounds like it's going to be all right, but cost, and forgive me for coming in a little bit late. I got tied up with a VA phone call. They were quizzing me on some things, but the cost. Did I hear you correctly in the tail end of your presentation that to replace the fob it's going to cost $250? So
if you lose your fob, there's The 50 of that 250, $50 is to give you a new fob, and the 200 is to deprogram everything that was that your fob had access to.
That's expensive.
It is expensive, but remember, that's why I went through that long, exhaustive example. It cannot be done globally because you don't have a fob. And so I cannot scan your fob, and remember I told you it's not attached to your name, it's attached to your fob number, so I don't have any way to take you out of the system globally if you've lost your fob. What that means is I have to create what's called a change card. So I create a brand new fob, and it's for the express purpose of then going door to door and removing you from every single door that you have access to. It's very labor intensive.
I have 5 guests coming a week from Friday out of town, their family. Do I have to pay $250 for each guest?
No. So if you have guests coming from out of town, you can check out a guest fob at your front desk, and there's no charge for that, unless you lose it. If you lose it, there's a charge.
What's the charge?
$250.
It seems like culture is going to change. We will not, as a resident, have access to a maintenance door, right? Because our fob will not work if we wanted to go into that office and talk to one there directly. And I have a second question.
So you never had access to a maintenance door.
No, I mean the maintenance office door.
Okay, so during regular business hours, my door is unlocked, maintenance is unlocked, housekeeping is unlocked. All of our business office doors are unlocked during regular business hours. If someone is out of their office, the door is locked, you do not have access. After hours, the door is locked, you do not have access. But during regular business hours, if they're not in a meeting or they're at their desk, you'll be able to get in.
Well, currently, the library doors are open. Is that going to change during daylight hours?
Not at this point. The question is the library door going to be shut? The library door is going to have a new lock, just like every other door in the community, but there are no plans at this point to lock the library door.
Thank you.
If you're traveling, will the fob go through the security at the airport?
Great question. That's not come up. We'll try to get an answer and publish that, or I'll share it at next Tuesday talk. Margaret, did you capture that for me? Thank you. So she asked if you are traveling and you go through security, will the fob get through security? I imagine you have to set it aside like you would your keys, and it goes through the separate scanner, but we'll get you an answer. We don't have the answer to that.
Just a quick question. I'm assuming, since what you said, if we have the fob, they can change it to another fob. Is that correct?
Yes.
My fob now had a crack in it, and I was able to turn it in, and they gave me a new fob. So is that the process? If that little place where you hook it on your key ring breaks, then you would take it and they would reprogram it?
Yes, great question. So you have a fob and you go to put it on that key ring and it's just a little too tight and it breaks the plastic. Come down, as long as you have the fob, you can exchange it, we'll give you a new one, there's no charge for any of that. Don't lose the fob, that's the expensive part.
I have a cat. If I go on vacation and ask a neighbor to take care of the cat, how do they get into my apartment?
I would lend my neighbor my fob. That's what I would do. If you have a cat or a dog and you go on vacation and your neighbor is going to take care of the cat or the dog, I'd lend them your fob. A trusted neighbor.
So that will open the door even if it's time to leave.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't have a fob, so when you got back, you'd either have to get your fob from your neighbor or let us let you into the apartment.
I thought you said the door was just the size in mine.
Okay, so really important. Your neighbor's fob won't get you in. So, Gladys, will you take care of my cat while I'm gone? Sure. You got to give them your fob. Her fob is not going to get access to your door. You've got to give them your fob.
All right, we've heard an awful lot of things here this morning, but the one basic one which everybody who has ever worked for a military department, what does an FOB mean?
Fine. you know the answer to that.
Look it up. Friends of the building.
Friends of the building. So, Margaret, will you capture that one for me, please? I'll find out. Somebody will ask me that.
If you have given fobs to your family and you lose yours, do you have to pay to replace all of theirs?
Great question. So let's say you've been issued 4 fobs and you lose one of them. Do you have to replace all of them? And the answer is no, because they're individually unique IDs. You only have to replace the fob that was lost or misplaced. Great question.
I'm here. I just wonder if I need to get a fob for my daughter who comes in quite a bit. Do I need to get her a separate fob?
You can. You certainly can get her a fob. Here's sort of the question that you put. They are $50 a piece. They're a unique ID. If you have someone who's here every single day or a couple of times a week, probably makes sense for them to have a fob. If you have a daughter or son who's visiting once every couple of months and they're here for 3 or 4 days, they're much better off to just use the guest fob. I give them a guest fob. There's no charge. They will have the same access that you'll have. That's probably the easier thing to do. You can.
Is it true that you will know where I am because I have the fob in my pocket?
No. So I will not know where you are if you have this fob in your pocket. If you have your pendant, your emergency alert system, I know where you are if you're on campus. But this fob does not have any GPS capability. There are no signals that it transmits, and so we're not able to tell you. We cannot track you.
Brent?
Yes.
Where and when can I purchase my fob, and how would I pay for it?
Betsy, have you set that up?
So I'm going to have a sign-up sheet at the desk where you can put your name and the fob that you're requesting, and then I'll get with you to determine the name of who you're requesting it for.
And how we pay.
And it will be put on your monthly bills.
I've got a question. The fobs for family members, are they going to have the same exact access to what I have if it's a family member? If I have a fob for a family member, or will they be restricted just to get on property and get into the building?
I think they would have the access for on property or common areas in your apartment.
I think Fob means friends without benefits. Just guessing.
I have 2 daughters who live here. Do I have to, and they come, if we're at home, very seldom. So it would be better for them just to get a guest one? Or can I just get one that both of them can use?
And so great question. If you have 2 daughters that are local, they're visiting on a regular basis, they may not be here together, can you just buy one fob and let the 2 of them use them? Absolutely. This is not a profit-making center. And so that makes sense to me, and yes, I think that's a good idea.
Brent, I have two questions. One, if our fob is destroyed by a fire or hurricane or car accident or something, do you replace it?
Yes. So if your fob is damaged, you step on it, you drive over it, you slam it in the door, and it cracks, come down, we'll give you a new one.
And the second question is for those people that are gone for, let's say, the summer, they lock their apartment and they come back, how do they get back in?
Yeah, take your fob with you. Why would you not have one? Help me out.
For instance, if they're gone, when the thing is activated,
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you have a vacation scheduled the second week of August and your fob isn't going to get activated until the third week of August, then when you get back, come to the front desk and we'll activate it for you and give you make sure it works. Great question. I understand.
Can I purchase a second fob for myself?
No.
So tell me what would you do with that? Maybe.
I would just be insurance that if I lost one, I would have one.
So the answer is no. Can you buy two fobs for yourself? And it's because each fob is uniquely identified to you, and so you are going to have a fob registered to your name, and so you couldn't have a second fob registered for that name.
Okay, on the guests, if I have lots of people come, I understand about them getting guest fobs. But some people forget to return things, or some people lose them. So if a guest of mine doesn't return a fob, am I charged $250?
Great question. You are responsible for your guest. If your guest has a fob, whether you issued it to them or I issued it to them, you're responsible. I'm going to bill you for the $250. You're responsible for your own guest. Great question.
Brent, on the question of ordering a second fob for insurance, you're saying you can't do it. Why can't you enter the person's name twice? Put a 1 and a 10.
Well, but how would that help you? Help me understand that.
It would help you not pay $250.
No, you're missing the point. So the lost fob, I understand what you're trying to do, but the fob that you lost, I don't know what happened to it. It's disappeared. I don't want to pay him $250. I'll buy a second one now. It's $200 cheaper. But what you're missing is you now have a fob that is out there somewhere. And whoever has that fob now has access to every perimeter door at the community. So you've breached our security. And so that's why you can't have two, is if you lose it, you must come and tell us. And eventually, I'm going to notice that, Tina hasn't used her fob in 3 weeks. I wonder if she's okay. We're going to come knock on the door.
If you lose the fob somewhere on campus, can you electronically locate that fob?
So the fob has no Wi-Fi or GPS capabilities, and so if you lose it on campus, I'm not able to find out where that is. It's not like your pendant where I have the towers and I can triangulate and find exactly where your pendant is. The fob doesn't have that capability. And I'm sorry, we did that specifically because you were very clear that you didn't want to be tracked. You know, if you're in a neighbor's apartment or, you didn't want to, or if you're in the restroom, we don't need to know that. So it has no tracking capabilities.
Brent, do we need a fob to get into our storage areas?
No. Yeah. Great question. Do you need a fob to get into the storage area? And the answer is no. Storage areas are just straight access. There's not even there's a new. I think there may be a new handle on it, but there's no locking device.
And the laundry room, the same thing. Laundry room.
None on the laundry rooms. Either.
In that 8x10 folded page, where it's listed all the service costs, if you need a particular service, whether it's a light fixture or something else, it's also listed in there a key fob, and it says $55. Is that now obsolete, or is it for something else that may happen?
So, yeah, so he's referring to the ancillary service charge and the replacement cost of the old fob, the one you're currently using, was $55. And so the replacement cost of this one is $50. So the new pricing will be reflected when that brochure is updated, and that's always updated into the year. So great question, thank you.
If you have a visitor who comes in once in a blue moon, do they have to have a fob, or can they just sign in as a guest and come ring your doorbell?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I get an extra fob for my daughter? She comes.
Yes. Yes. All right. A few more questions. I promise to get out of here at 11:30 so that it will fit on the YouTube. I promise.
Can two family members pass the fob from one to the other if they're speaking to one another?
So can two family members pass the fob and share it amongst themselves? That's okay by us, and we can manage that relationship.
Okay, and then Mary Ellen just asked me a good question that I'll make sure everybody knows. So let's say you find someone's fob on the floor. You can bring me that fob and I can scan it and return it to the person that it was assigned to. So turn it in, I'll scan it and return it.
Return to desk.
All right, yeah. Last question. Right here. All right. Second
Change
last
the
question.
subject. I want to know when the blue team is going to clean up. I am so embarrassed. I have company coming from out of town, and it's disgraceful.
Yeah. So the blue team is standing by. They are waiting on Gallagher, our insurance company, to create a settlement. And so, this is how that works. Blue Team gave them an estimate on the remediation, and Gallagher doesn't want to do as much as the Blue Team thinks they need to do, and so they are negotiating. Now, I know it's an inconvenience, but the good side of looking at that, the longer they argue and negotiate, the more we're going to get accomplished. So they haven't started. They're on standby. There are some rumors that they are close. I saw a Blue Team truck on campus yesterday for the first time in 3 weeks. And so I'm hoping they were here to start thinking about staging. And I'll keep you updated. I'll mention it at Tuesday Talk next week if in fact we hear something from them.
The fob that I picked up yesterday is going to work on the new lock they put on my door. No programming necessary.
Yeah, it's already programmed. And so here's how you'll know. When your lock shows up at your door, take your new fob, make sure you can get in, take your old metal key and your old fob, and bring them down to the front desk. And from that point on, you're good to go. All exterior fobs are in transition, will be done this week. So you should be able to get into the buildings, all of the buildings, on the new fob effective Friday night.
Is it different from the old ones?
Yes. Yes, yeah. All right. Thank you very much.